Welcome to Backboard Banter on the board with your hosts Matt Middleton and Kevin Rayner, where the banter's as ferocious as Yak and Pearl against those Orlando Magic, man. The Yak is back, baby. Let's go.
We're pretty happy fans getting a 30-point game from Yak himself, but we can't take it as too much. It's a couple of games. We're facing the trash of the league, right? We don't want to be those fans out there that are like, yes, this is what we needed. This is everything. Like, let's give it a little bit of time to simmer, but happy days at least. A happy week for us as fans.
Man, we gotta let it marinate. But
Yeah.
we'll talk about basketball a little bit further in the Raptors. I really want to go to football, man, because I was 12-1 in my takes for the playoffs this year. Just that Minnesota game, but hey, man, 12-1, that ain't bad.
Man.
Meanwhile, I made no money off of it.
Oh man, it was a wild end to the football year. A great game that people are talking about, not talking about, controversy, not controversy. At the end of the day, the Chiefs won. Mahomes is here to stay. They proved that they were the winners. Maybe not the best team, but they were the winners at the end. And Matt, I got to come home from a nice day of skiing to a very anticlimactic end because all I watched was the last play. So again, I'm the curse over here.
Dude, it's so unfortunate that they ended the game that way, considering like how great of a game it was to have it end on a holding penalty, really like essentially that was like the entirety of the game. It was really unfortunate. Now, yes, it was a hold. Yes, there are other calls throughout the entirety of the game that could have changed the momentum, could have swung in either direction. It's just when fans see it at the end, it really, really pronounces how big of an issue officiating can be, and it makes the fans feel like we got robbed of what should have been a spectacular ending. Instead, we
Yeah.
got, to watch Patrick Mahomes kneel down and run out the clock. Like that wasn't necessarily what we wanted at the end of that game. But hey, you know what? Maybe if you had stopped him from scoring on any one of his other previous drives in that half, like you would have won. So at the end of the day, like it is what it is, and
Yeah. Well, and
the
that's
man is back to the Super Bowl MVP top.
right.
He
Well,
is who he is.
that was the funny thing for me because I was driving home and I was like seeing the score and Eagles were up at halftime and I was thinking, oh, it's a game, it's a competition. Like Patrick Mahomes isn't just walking away from this. And then I got home, I was chatting with Allie, and I saw the score was tied with a few minutes left in the game, and I was like, yo, I gotta go watch the end of this banger. Like, this has got to be exciting. Something wild's got to be going on. And yes, I watched them kick a field goal, and I watched Patrick Mahomes put his knee down on the ground, and it was sad. So I can understand where fans are coming from, but yeah, man, a hold's a hold, right? At the end of the day.
Who'd committed 3 hours of their lives to watch this. And it was spectacular, man. Like the
Yeah.
first half, 24-14, Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind. Yes, he has that one fumble, but it's his only mistake of the game so far. Patrick Mahomes is hurt. He got hurt again going into the locker room. He's limping off. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, the Eagles have this. And like
Yeah.
I was a big proponent before the game that the script was either going to be one of three scenarios. I only saw a close game, with a Chiefs or Eagles victory, or an Eagles blowout.
Yeah.
And it was kind of looking like the latter. Like we might get an Eagles blowout, but then Patrick Mahomes does Patrick Mahomes things and they win, man. I mean, Kadarius Toney with that huge punt return was massive. And they were able to hold up on defense. They were able to keep the Eagles from scoring in that second half. And that was the major difference, man. It was wild though to think Patrick Mahomes after the ankle injury was like 13 of 14 for a couple touchdowns. Like just this man is too good at football. Just wild.
There's a reason why the team was where they were, and there's a reason why they've only fallen, short as they have over the past few years, right? Like Patrick Mahomes is him. He's that guy. He is the current man that you have to get past in the NFL. So it's going to be interesting to see if, the conversation is right now, is it Brady and him? But we'll see if Mahomes can keep up his legacy, can keep defining more moments in the next few years.
It's crazy because like most people are comparing him to Brady at the moment, and then some guy comes out and is like, it's disrespectful to Tom Brady to compare him to Brady. It's like, I don't know if it's disrespectful, man. Patrick Mahomes has had the greatest 5-year stretch to start a career,
Yeah.
I think, out of anybody. And I know, people say, well, Brady won 3 in his first 5 years. He also missed the playoffs, and he didn't win any MVPs, I
Yeah.
think, in that first 5 years of his career, regular season MVP award. So at the end of the day, like, Patrick Mahomes has him on that. Patrick Mahomes has him on the yards, the touchdowns, the everything else. So yeah, no, I think it's very fair to compare him to Tom Brady, because that's kind of where he's headed.
Yeah, and it's the eye test too, right? Like you look at what he's capable of doing. You look at how people think about him as such a force in the QB position. Like, yeah, that's the conversation right now. It's going to be the conversation for a while, but you can't forget about this Eagles team, right? Because at the end of the day, if they had have just gotten one stop, right? If they just had have held on that little bit, they walk away as champions, and it's gonna sting. It's gonna sting for that team, especially for Philadelphia right now, losing all they do. I'm hoping, this is where my dream comes in now, that the 76ers can go lose in the finals now, and then it's just full circle for Philly fans all year. They can just have it all, basically.
Man, that would mean that they make the NBA Finals. I don't even want them to do that. I don't even want them to feel that much joy. No. But at the end of the day, with this Philadelphia team, man, like, what really kind of sucks for them is that this is probably the last kick at the can with this kind of group. So they had 4 players, 2 on the offensive line and 2 on the defensive line, that had been on the team for 10 plus seasons. And you know anything about the NFL, linemen don't have 10-year careers.
Okay.
And so to have 2 guys on the same team for that long on each line, so you had 4 total guys, like,
Yeah.
It's a special group, man. And
Seriously.
those 4 guys were on the team when they won the Super Bowl, obviously, last time. They have a really good formula. They did it when they won the Super Bowl back in 2017. Rookie quarterback, pay for everybody on the roster,
Yeah.
and you have the best roster in the NFL. And that's what they did this year. They had the best roster in the NFL. But now they're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts, because he was a second-round pick. He only had a 4-year contract, so he's still under the rookie contract for next year. Jason Kelsey, Travis's brother, might retire. He's the anchor of that offensive line. Fletcher Cox might not be back. Like, there's going to be a lot of turnover on that Eagles team. They do have a very strong, good, young nucleus, but this, I think, was really their year. Like, they didn't really face any major competition. The NFC is wide open. The NFC could get, maybe a couple quarterbacks this year, and it could be a completely different race. So
Yeah.
we'll think about what happens next year. But it was just sad for them, man. They really had the opportunity in front of them, and it would have been great for them to win.
It's tough to get that close, right? And so many people talk about how, an NFL championship is potentially the hardest chip to win because of the road, because of the fact that there is no margin for error at the end of the day. So there's people on that field who are never going to be on that stage again, which hurts so much for a lot of them. So yeah, I get it. I get the pain for Eagles, the teammates, the fans, everything right now.
Yeah, man, they might not even get even close again. Some of them might never play football again, which is crazy. And yeah, it's just sad for them. But hey, man, Chiefs, man, they're the new Patriots. They're the dynasty of the NFL. Like, 2 in 5 years, 3 Super Bowls, 5 AFC Championship games.
Yeah.
Like, it is just wild to think that he is only 27 and just, it's an upward trajectory from here for him. Like, it's just nuts.
Exactly. And, to also, we can't not talk about it. That halftime show, pretty hilarious, Matt. I saw the pictures, and all I could imagine was, like, Super Smash Bros. Melee stages and, just characters going over and battling over there. But, yeah, Rihanna absolutely killing it on those floating stages.
I think, like, it was a good show. I think it was really funny that everybody was, like, after, they're like, she did that pregnant. Was she pregnant? Like, yeah, like, did you see her? She was obviously pregnant. She obviously didn't do a ton of dancing because she was pregnant. Do you not have eyes? Like, it was just so funny, man. People after the show, like, can anyone confirm if she was pregnant or not? Is Rihanna just fat? Like, no. Like, come on.
This is just the problem. People are always just looking for something, right? Meanwhile, it's just like, they were hanging out on floating stages and doing cool stuff. Like, enjoy the show, guys. Enjoy the show.
While she was pregnant. That was so cool.
She's absolute champion. I know people were sad that, we didn't get some male singers added on to some of her songs, but you know what? She crushed it, and another halftime show gone by.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think, another year, another Super Bowl. I gotta start making bets, man. Like I gotta start winning some money on the NFL. Like this is just crazy at this point. I follow it too often to not gamble.
You've gotten too good at it at this point. 12-1 is pretty top tier when it comes to football calls, you know. We'll see if next year I'm going to start making you start calling some totals or like number of touchdowns so that we can add a little bit of spice. I got to keep your perfect record down a little bit.
Bro, scores are so hard to predict. Like it is way harder than just the outcome of the game.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
I'm going to stick to outcomes. Okay.
Keeping it easy for you. All right, well, let's move out of football now. That's the end of the NFL for the season. It means it's all basketball all the time. And what a way to celebrate that, but by having no basketball next week. It's kind of hilarious. So we got the All-Star weekend coming up, but let's take a step back. Let's look at the week we just had. Raptors and Jakob. It's the return of the Yak baby. He's here. Started a little soft. People were a little worried after that 6 points in that first game, but man, that game against the Magic. Look. They were so close to having a nice welcoming back for Yak, and then they just collapsed at the end of the game. Classic Raptors, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully we can move past that. I know. We don't need more of that, my guy. So hopefully we can move past that. We can think about the positivity. Hopefully those two other games with Detroit and with the Magic can, simmer until the end of the All-Star break, and then we can have some positivity for the last 20 or so games of the season.
Yeah, well, I think at this point, we are ninth. I think we're going to be firmly entrenched in the play-in, and I think we have the opportunity to even push for the playoffs, like outright that 6th seed. Yeah. I think Brooklyn's going to be too good to fall out. Like Mikal Bridges last night was 45. Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, like they've got players. Yeah. And so I think they'll be able to stay afloat to the point where that 6th seed is still within reach. But I could see us coming up and knocking them out of it. If we go on a little bit of a hot run here. Now, like you mentioned, we just played Detroit, Utah, and Orlando. So it's not like we're playing the cream of the crop in the NBA here. But it's nice to see that Yak kind of is doing what we anticipated. He's filling a lot of the holes that we had seen from our lack of having an NBA quality center. Yeah. And he's opened up a lot of things for Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. He didn't even hunt that 30 points pretty aggressively. Like it was just kind of there for him, and he took it. Where I'm sure it's been there all year for Christian Koloko to hit 30 points. He just doesn't have the ability to take it, and so it's really nice to have that added element to our roster and to keep teams honest when they're playing us, right?
Honestly, it's all about the honesty there, but it's fun, right? Like I didn't get to watch much this week because I was skiing basically every day that the Raptors were playing, so I was sad, but getting to watch the highlights and just seeing the comfort level that he provided a lot of our players. Like, look, 35-point game out of Siakam against the Jazz. Goes 12 for 21. 35-point game for Fred in the next game. Goes, 12 for 26? Not the best statistics. You look at that Magic game, Fred turned into a passer and let Yak cook. Siakam and Yak on the pick and roll. Anyone with Yak in the pick and roll, like, you can see the dynamic of what Masai was looking for and how, I have to admit this, like ever since we lost Mark and Serge, Serge is not what he was, but ever since we lost those two, we have been waiting, hoping that somebody could come in and play center minutes like Yak is doing right now. And
exactly,
Koloko is here for the future, and we hope that he can eventually be that statistic for 10 plus years. But right now, if we do want to actually compete, if we're rolling into a retool to go into next season and actually crush, we need a player like Jakob. And as much as it sucks to trade a first-round pick, we would hope that that first-round pick would either be Jakob or be the shooter guard player that we need. So I'm pretty happy with how this is working out as long as this course can stay the same, right?
Yeah, and I think, it's just the beginning of it. We're only 3 games into it. I think Masai also decided to do this because he's really evaluating whether or not Nick Nurse is the coach of the future for us.
Yeah.
I think he realized that the roster was flawed. He knew that there was definitely more to give for this Raptors team and that Nick wasn't necessarily getting it, but there were 2 glaring holes that in today's NBA you kind of need to have.
Yeah.
Big men less so, but we were clearly lacking any starting caliber center on our roster, and the small ball centers, while they were, playing well, Tim Birch can hold his own, Siakam can hold his own, Precious,
It's not
Scotty sometimes, but they're not real centers, right? Like, we're talking about power forwards at the most. And so having him is just, it's given our roster just that little bit of extra flexibility. And I think if Nick can figure out how to coach this roster, he's going to figure out how to save his job. If we can get into the playoffs, which I think that we're going to, and he can make us a tough first round exit, I think that that's going to save his job, and he's going to give him, some rope next year if we start off poorly. But I think that immediately he's kind of filled that big hole in our roster, and I think we're going to be good, man. I think that, I was saying we needed to go 16-11 or something like that with 27 games left, and so we went 2-1, so now we just got to go 14-10. Well,
on pace.
It's a little bit easier,
Yeah. To roll it back though to your Nick Nurse comment, because I really like what you said there, and you're always talking about in the past how Nurse is the type of coach that needs the right pieces to have his effective situation work, and I think we've seen that Yak is a new piece that he hasn't had an opportunity to work with over the past few years. And you talk about the missing situation, right? Like, yes, we still have guard problems on the one hand, but if Yak can come in and enable Nurse to run the rotations that he wants and have that reliable cog, in that center position, maybe we won't see the amount of fumbling that we've seen all season long, right? We're sitting in this moment of what if, we hope this, we hope that. And it takes me back to my comment last week about how, like, we as Raptors fans would have been so pissed if we just did nothing, right? And you look at the past and what's worked. Masai had to take risks. He's had to take risks to get the success that we've had, and you can't look at that trade and not say it's a risk for the Raptors, right? The easier play is to sell and go young and reset, get yourself into the right position when you are a surefire bet here or there and you got a couple of pieces, and then you roll the dice. Masai was like, I'm going to roll the dice a little bit early, and we'll see how it works out.
Dude, no, it's a major roll of the dice, because he's betting that not only can we be competitive for the rest of this year, but that we can re-sign Jakob and be competitive next year. But you're right, he swings big, and normally he does make it. The easier path and the one that you can sell to the fan base is, we're going to be bad for the next couple of years, and it's quite easy to be bad in the NBA if you try, right? And I mean, the Jazz excluded, but if you try to be bad, you can be pretty bad in the NBA pretty fast. And being competitive is difficult, but I think that it's going to give Nick the opportunity to play around with the center. I think that it's also going to give him an opportunity to insert a true anchor on our defensive end. I don't think we've been flying around as much the last 3 games as we typically do. We're still switch happy, but we're not. It doesn't feel like we're always late to rotate, that we're always chasing the ball to the shooter, and it feels like everybody was kind of in front of their man, which is really nice to see, because we don't even have OG. And so if our defense is already going to be that much better with just adding Yak, like when we add in OG again, like, we should have an elite level defense. And that could be what makes us truly scary come playoff times, and what could make us a really hard first round exit for, a Milwaukee or a Boston or a Philly.
I mean, 6 blocks in that game against Orlando, right? 6 blocks from Jakob. We talked, even in the beginning of the season, right? And we were talking about this team, and we really like it, and this and there, and it's just missing a couple of things. And I really love the relationship that you see that Yak has with, the rest of this team. I still think it's hilarious that Masai came out in the first interview and was like, just walked into OVO, and he was there chilling. It was great. It was like old times. Like, it's the camaraderie sense. It's the fact that it is a honeymoon period, but it's a player that pretty much knows how things work. A lot has probably changed since Jakob was here, but also the fundamentals and the core structure of the Raptors is, I'm gonna think, pretty similar. So I'm happy right now. I'm sad that we have to have a break from games and we don't get to see it, but maybe this is good. It gets them all to come together. It gets them to rest and relax. And then they really focus in, because if we know anything about this Raptors squad, is that they believe themselves as winners. and that is their goal and focus. And if Nurse really gets them locked in for these 27 games and they come out and think of it as a brand new situation, a brand new season, and they have this opportunity to make that push into the playoffs, I wouldn't want to be Miami or New York right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, you know what was really funny about Masai's press conference after the trade deadline was that he was talking about how Yak is an unselfish type of player and how he's going to help move the ball, and how the early winning last year made our players kind of lean into more of a me kind of a mentality, okay. Right? And it's something that we've talked about all year on this podcast, is that the Raptors feel like we're too many guys. We have too many guys who think that they can become top 20 NBA players. And I like, that's great to have, right? Like, to have the ability to even get close to that, to have the talent level, to have, you know, that desire within you. But there's only so much ball to go around, and you can't have 5 top 20 guys on a team. It's not going to work out. They're not going to be top 20 guys, at least statistically, right? And so it's been a big issue this year, and hopefully Yak, knowing that, you know, like we said, he's probably at best the 12th best center in the NBA, and at worst the 17th. He knows where he is in this league. He's in his prime. He knows that there isn't this all-star trajectory for him. He is who he is, and he's going to allow the ball to move a little bit easier. He's not going to be, you know, hunting his shot. Even when he got 30, like I mentioned, it was just because it was there. It wasn't because he was hunting. And that's not something that we've had, right? Like, everyone's been hunting for their points, hunting for their stats. And so you know, when Wancho and Thad were the glue guys, you know, earlier in the season, they were the best glue guys because they weren't looking for stats.
Yeah.
Right? We had to put Scotty and Gary Trent to the bench because they're looking for stats. They're looking to get paid. They're looking to cement themselves in this league and their place in the echelon of the league. Whereas Pearl's already got it, you know?
My favorite part about this conversation is I was waiting for you to come full circle, because you started with, we just have too many guys. And I was like, so we traded a guy that doesn't really play for a guy that's going to play all the time. And then I was like, no, but it's Yakov. He's coming in to not be a guy. He's coming in to be a member of the team, right? And I don't want to say his time in right, but I don't want to say his time in San Antonio was sad for him, because, like, it probably was. The man watched his old team go on, win a championship, and he was part of the reason why that happened. And, like, it's still kind of crazy to me that he's back, that he's a part of this team now. And, like, I hope that he takes all of that negative energy that probably was in his brain because of losing and is like, well, now we're back. And if I'm the reason why we can go back to relevancy and be an important key, well, then it was all worth it in the end, right?
Hey, man, we would have taken him or, you know, the other former Raptor in Jonas Valanciunas. I was taking either of those guys for this squad, and we'd be in the same situation having the same conversation, right?
So true. So true.
Yeah, so it's just really nice to see, man. But, you know, the All-Star break's coming up. Like you said, hopefully the team gets some time to gel, to talk. You know, maybe they all go on vacation together, add in Yak on a last-minute flight, or I'm sure one of them has a private jet that they're chartering, so you can just throw him on the flight, right?
Him and Siakam are probably hanging out right now. Let's be honest. The two of them are probably so amped to be back together and getting to hang out. All right, it's all about positive vibes. That's what we like to see. Hopefully it brings, you know, Smiling Scotty back, because I feel like I've only seen Smiling Scotty in the TV commercials that he's been a part of. Like, on court, he's just been all business because he's had to be to try to get these W's. Not much more, I think, when it comes to the Raptors. Like, we could talk about the week ahead, but in all honesty, we can just do that next week.
Exactly, man. You know, because they're not playing a game until after our next podcast anyways, against the Pels. So
we will get to see Siakam in the All-Star game, so there is that.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, we can be hyped for him. He gets to be replaced. There's like 6 replacements. It's a lot of people who aren't going to be playing. It's crazy.
Bro, Siakam not being in the All-Star game was the biggest snub.
Yeah.
It was like, it's one of the biggest snubs in the last 10 years. I understand where our roster was, or our record was, but, like, the man was averaging 26, 7, and like 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, he is an all-star. Like, come on, those are MVP numbers back in the past. Early 2000s, man, you could win an MVP with those kinds of numbers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Easy.
And I'm happy for him. You know, I'm excited for Siakam to get to go and experience it again, because he is an all-star caliber player. And, you know, there is something about that weekend, right? The fact that you have the best of the best coming together. And, the All-Star game actually means a little bit more now, right? Compared to what it was a couple of years ago. So we get to see the flashy show, and then we get to watch 5 minutes of like hardcore basketball at the end. But at the end of the day, it'll be a hopefully exciting weekend coming up.
All-Star games are honestly the worst in all sports. Like, they're so bad. The NHL's was so bad. The NFL's was pretty bad, and the NBA's is going to be bad. Like, it's not for us, man. It's for little kids. It's for, for them to throw a corporate event, to have all the big leagues come down and shake hands and meet the stars, and it's really what it's for. It's not for us, man.
And like,
I want to see good, hard basketball. I want to
True.
see, teams playing for wins. Not for
I don't even have who's in the dunk contest or the 3-point contest this year. We were excited last year when Scotty was in the skills competition, and then let's not remember the look of him trying to get a layup really close and just will not go in. Poor guy.
That man was so big.
Probably straight chilling. But yeah, we'll talk about All-Star Weekend next week because it'll have happened, and then we'll have some exciting things to talk about. Maybe Damian Lillard drains 33 pointers in the contest. Who knows? Anything's possible. Let's switch tactics now. Let's talk about Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics because he's officially the full-time head coach. Interim tag gone. Man, what a wild storyline for the Celtics, but he looks to seem like he knows what he's doing with this team.
Bro, I mean, back-to-back years where they hit on a first-year head coach. Like, good for them. They do have an amazing roster, right? Like, when you have that kind of talented roster, it's like Nick Nurse going to the NBA Finals and winning his first year, right? Like, you have Kawhi Leonard, you have Jason Tatum. You're going to be pretty good.
Also helps when you can just walk upstairs and be like, hey, Brad Stevens, I need your ear for a bit. You know what I mean? Like...
give me the scheme that you run to be successful.
Brad's up there in the office just coming up with out of timeout plays, just occasionally just slipping them under Mazzulla's door here and there. Let's be honest.
Man. At the end of the day, though, it's great for Boston. It's also great for coach-needy franchises, because at the end of the day, this basically means that Ime Udoka is no longer a member of the Boston Celtics, that his suspension will be probably upheld, and then he'll be fired at the end of the season. If I'm looking at the Raptors right now thinking, if Nick Nurse can't figure this out, maybe we just go hire Ime.
I mean, we know he knows what's up, but yeah, it's going to be a wild storyline to get to follow, to see what happens with Ime after the whole thing. And like, the Celtics have a good ship right now. They know what their plan is. They know what's up, and it's working with Mazzulla. So yeah, don't change things. And you nailed it right there. How did they get back-to-back, like, really, really damn good coaches that seem to mesh well with this team? Like all credit to Boston, all credit to what they're doing. It's scary how good Boston seems to be right now.
Right, like if you gave him, Detroit's roster, if you gave him, Orlando's roster, I'm sure he'd be, at the bottom of the league. But he's got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you can only be so bad when you've got that much talent, right? Like, that's why I've been harping on Nick Nurse all year.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, you have OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes. Like, you should only be so bad. Like, only so bad. And we've been way worse than what our bottom should be. So, hey, whatever. I'm over it. We got Siakam. I'm in a good place. I'm happy.
Yak attack. Okay, so then now let's bring Matt down a little bit more because we got to talk about Zion Williamson now. One of Matt's favorite players. This guy has another setback. He's re-aggravated his hamstring. It looks like he's going to miss multiple weeks. The Pelicans, who 2 months ago, at the end of December, we were sitting here going, dang, it's all coming together for this squad. It's working out. And they have fallen flat.
Dude, this happened like 3 weeks ago or like 4 weeks ago, whatever. I was like, I'm never backing on Zion Williamson. And then he comes back and he's absolutely dominant. And I'm like, oh, God, why? And then I'm backing on him and he immediately gets hurt. So maybe I'm the curse.
Man, who knows? It's tough,
maybe
though.
I just got to denounce Zion and he'll be, the next LeBron James.
It's definitely possible, right? But yeah, it's tough. It's tough for Zion, especially. It's tough for this Pels team. They are
Oh,
They're not relevant anymore. They're going to be
yeah.
potentially a playoff team, right? Like they're sitting 30 and 29 right now. I look at Golden State right below them. I look at OKC right below them. Like I see the Lakers could even jump in them. Like this injury is not good. There was hope that Zion would come back and then they could make a push and be consistently a top 6 team while healthy. Not happening anymore. Pels fans, it's going to be a tough couple of weeks ahead of you. That's for sure.
No, it's definitely a tough one, man. It's definitely going to be a tough one for them. And you're right. Like there's some teams behind them that are going to be nipping at their heels, and losing Zion, he's their most important cog. So it's really sad. But I actually kind of want to talk about the Lakers a little bit because like last night, I guess was like their first fully healthy new look. That LeBron's back and everything, and they look good, man. They
Yep.
beat the Pelicans pretty badly. And D'Angelo Russell looked really good in his new spot. LeBron and AD worked well together. Could they do some damage if they ever made the playoffs, or what?
Look,
What do you think?
it's LeBron here, okay? This is him retooling his Cavs roster, and then he took that Cavs roster pretty far, if everyone remembers correctly. And the conversation right now is that this is like a better rebuild than that situation was. And I mean, come on, if LeBron is fully healthy, if Anthony Davis is fully healthy, D'Lo has proved that he can play with them. They have a much better roster around LeBron and AD than they did at the start of the season. So how can you not say that they can do it? They're 27 and 32. That's less than 10 games back of second place, which is still insane to think about, right? Yes, 10 games.
Yeah.
A lot of games still to play. But like
Yeah, yeah.
4 games out of the 6th seed, basically. 4 or 5 games.
Oh,
That's nothing. This team could go on a run. They play 27 games. If they win 10 games straight, which with LeBron you can do, it's probably not going to happen, but you
yeah.
could do. So, of course, the conversation right now is that the Lakers are in it. It's why anybody who is in that play-in hunt right now is scared. They have to be.
The thing to me that like kind of stood out the most of watching last night was how good they were at shooting the ball.
Yeah.
They actually had shooters. Like LeBron at the beginning of the game threw a wild, behind the back pass like over his head to D'Angelo Russell, who caught the ball and immediately scored a 3.
Yeah.
And it looked like a wild play that this old Lakers roster would have bricked.
Yeah.
Like it's and that's the difference. Like it looks like these passes, these plays that LeBron can make out of desperation, instead of ending up in a open 3 that's bricked, it ends up in an open 3 that they hit.
Yep.
And so I think that's going to make all the difference in the world, man. I honestly could not believe how much better their roster looked just around the changes that they had. And they have the ability to understand pace and tempo and play, a spacing game.
Yeah.
It's not, needing to go full out 100% of the time and crash the glass like it was with Russell Westbrook. So, I'm always going to be a huge Westbrook fan, but at the end of the day, like, they're just better.
I mean, matchups are important, chemistry is important, but also play style. Simply put, play style is important. And like, I'm sorry, LeBron's been in the league how many years? Look at his successful teams. What has worked well? Anyways, I'm not even going to talk about that conversation because everyone knows. The fact of the matter is, this is why last week we were talking about why was everyone being so nice to Lakers? How did they get all these gifts of trades? Like, how did this league not come together and be like, guys, let's let LeBron be bad? Like, why are we gifting him all these nice things? They look a lot better, and you give a nice week off. You let them rest and relax. They come back together, and they, like the Raptors, reset up for the next rest of the season. Lakers could go on a scary run for sure. I don't see them, locking themselves in to a top 6 seed unless everything falls apart and they suddenly go on a crazy spree. And, we see a couple of injuries here and there for some of these top teams. But, like, I'm pretty confident they'll be a play-in team. Like, pretty confident.
I'm pretty confident they'll be a play-in team at the very least.
Yeah.
I think at this point, they have the roster and they have the 2 players to get there. It'll just be like on them to not mess it up. But I'm still happy that they're at least going to make the play-in, that we're actually going to see some playoff LeBron James, because, man, we only got so many years left of it. And
do you remember when he beats Golden State, goes in the first round against Phoenix? And we talk about how, like, this seed with AD being healthy and LeBron being healthy, could actually like come out of the West, right?
Mhm.
And then AD got hurt, and the Suns went on. And I'm sitting here going, this is a very similar situation, but do I really like this team compared to that team? Like, I have to really compare them, but the shooting is definitely a lot better, and that I think is all the Lakers really needed to do.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? And they've got floor spacing, they've got LeBron James, they've got Anthony Davis, like they've got a team. They've got an actual competitive roster. It should not be in the bottom half of the league like it is right now, but we'll see if they can crawl out of it. We'll see.
It'll be fun watching them and following them. And can we flip to Golden State now? Can we flip to this Peyton trade debacle? Like, I've been following this trade for a few days here. It's kind of insane the way that it's turned out. For 4 teams with 4 players to basically have the potential of not going through because Golden State was given the opportunity to either veto everything or take the trade through is kind of insane. I don't think we've had that type of situation where that many teams are involved and an actual trade could fall apart that way. So,
Yeah,
big ups to Golden State for, actually letting the trade go through, but it's a wild situation.
man, that's so dumb. They should not have let the trade go through. He failed his physical. Like, you basically traded away stuff for nothing, is what you're telling me.
It shows
Like,
them how much they value James Wiseman, that's for sure.
Like, you needed something back, and you got nothing. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. Like, Portland looks sketchy, but like, hey, if you got injured players and other teams are willing to take them, like, maybe you could skirt them through the physical, get some assets back. I'm not gonna blame Portland for doing that, but Golden State, man, like, veto the trade.
Man, it's
You're
wild.
not this year. You're not. Gary Payton's not making the difference for your roster. James Wiseman, meanwhile, looks great in Detroit in his first game. Like,
yep. The copium from Golden State fans are like, but if it works out, it'll only be 3 weeks, and then him and Curry will come back in the same time, and everything will be fine. Look, at this point, you've let the trade go through because you like Gary Payton as a locker room presence. He's not going to play. He's not going to be impactful in the same way that he was for you guys last year. That would be unreal amazing. It would be Kevin Durant level of returning from injuries. It doesn't happen, all right? So, you know what? Good for Golden State by not letting, Peyton go back to what probably would have been a very sketchy and uncomfortable situation for him going back, and we'll see if anything happens. Obviously, Golden State has filed a grievance, but at the end of the day, like, maybe a second-round pick will come out of this. I don't expect anything to come out of this. Like, unless there is some extremely shady stuff going on with the Portland medical staff, looks like, because what I had heard was that he was taking these specific shots, and then Gary came out himself and was like, no, I haven't been taking those shots. That's a lie. So I don't actually know what the actual story is right now. So I'm going to wait for the final reports to come in. So it's either Portland is super sketchy or Golden State got taken advantage of. That's where I stand right now.
Yeah, and hopefully Golden State just got taken advantage of, because that's what I'd prefer.
All right. Do you want to talk about the buyout market? You want to talk about Westbrook anymore and where you think that man's going to end up?
Yeah, there's some like decent players, but like none of them are really going to make that big of a difference. I think Kevin Love should stay on the Cavs. Like they should use him as like a locker room veteran presence because, they're a contender. I think Westbrook, he doesn't fit with any contender. Like, I know that like the Clippers want him, like, but he just doesn't fit. Maybe with Phoenix, he could play a backup role, but
and that's
like, what about you, man? Like,
with what I find it so funny with Westbrook that you're right that he doesn't fit, and that's why the Washington rumors exist. Because just go back to Washington, go play and have fun because they're not relevant. And if you bring Westbrook back, they'd at least there's jerseys that fans can bring out of their closets. That's for sure. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
It's a tough one. Kevin Love for me is just a funny situation because like, for years it was like, they're gonna buy. Kevin Love's contract is trash. He's just stuck in limbo with the Cavs, and then. Last year I was bringing up how amped I was and how well he was playing for this team. So I think it's kind of hilarious that now he's getting bought out. Now that they're in a good situation, it's like, bye-bye, Kevin. See you later. Like, rough situation for that guy. But yeah, there's really not much. Like, Pat Bev's going to go somewhere. Cool. Serge Ibaka, probably not going anywhere. His career might actually be done at this point.
Over.
There's not much in this buyout market, that's for sure.
Absolutely, man. It's the buyout market for a reason, right? Sometimes we get some good players, but there's just nobody really that great out there. And like the best one, probably Westbrook. He doesn't fit if you're trying to compete. He just doesn't. Like he's not going to accept a lesser role, especially when you don't have like guys who he would consider better than him above
Yeah.
him in the rotation. So at the end of the day, I just it is what it is. But I'd like to see him in Phoenix because Phoenix probably has the best chance at winning the NBA title right now with
Yeah.
Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
Well, I
So
mean, if you look at the current bio, people who have already joined, like Terrence Ross joined Phoenix, so he's like the best player that changed a team currently when it comes to the market. And yeah, it looks like Phoenix is loading up their chamber for a run, which they have to do because their window is probably this
now,
year and next, and that's about it, right?
bro. Well, with CP3, it's now.
Yeah,
I don't know how much CP3 is going to play next year, to be honest. So
that is for sure. And you know, looking at these streaks here, I still can't believe the Spurs have lost 14 games straight. Like, yes, Rockets have lost 7 games. That seems realistic, but the Spurs at 14? Crazy.
yo, they've been trying to catch the Rockets, man. The Rockets are still having the worst record in the NBA. They had to try and do something to get Victor Wembanyama.
I didn't even think about that. That's too good. And
Not to, man.
the flip side of
Thank
that,
goodness the Bulls
oh my God, I can't believe
falling out of the play-in for us.
Man, I feel so bad for Bulls fans right now because like it's just I don't see how the ship gets better. Lonzo isn't coming back. The team is not good. DeMar is getting older. Like you kind of have to blow it off. It's not fun, man. The fact that Bulls fans 2 years ago were finally riding high. We finally made a trade. Like Zach LaVine's gonna stay, yada yada, and now they're back to this. Wild.
Blow it up. I always find it so funny when people talk about DeMar DeRozan as a proven playoff performer, as like a former Raptor who we saw get absolutely dummied by LeBron James every year. I was like, yeah, he's good up until you play the best players in the world. Yeah.
DeMar will destroy anybody below him. Once you get above him, it's dangerous game for the guy. He tends to fold over. We watched it for years. We're allowed to say it. Let's be honest.
Yeah, unfortunately. I love you, DeMar.
we do love DeMar. Like, I got a Lowry jersey. One day I'll probably get a DeMar jersey too when I have money to blow randomly. But do you want to talk about the Bucks and their 11-game win streak? Like, kind of hilarious that Giannis is still getting slept on for MVP more than the current back-to-back champion, even though this Bucks team is absolutely Giannis's squad and nothing else. Like, it's insane.
Yo, it's Giannis and nobody else. Like, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday on another team are not enough to make you a championship level roster, right? Like, they just aren't.
I mean,
and the fact that Giannis can do it basically all by himself, it's just unbelievable, man. What are they, like 40 and 17? Like,
yeah,
crazy.
Exactly that. And, well, it's fun because like we were talking about, the Lakers retooling, and you talk about the right pieces around the right roster. Like, we can talk about this Milwaukee roster about how like without Giannis they wouldn't be nothing. It's because of how important each player is around Giannis. I'm sorry, Brook Lopez is the perfect center around Giannis because of how centery Giannis is as a player. Drew Holiday does everything that you want out of a point guard for a Giannis type player. Bobby Portis has that energy for when Giannis gets to sit and can still kind of do some things. Like, these players are specifically put together for Giannis. And it's why it's like, how can you not have him as high up in the MVP conversation? He is a force of nature. And like, this is what, the Cavs should have done for LeBron when he was there the first time. That's what Milwaukee is doing right now. It's like, it's done.
You know how we talked about how we were a team of too many guys? They're a team of one guy and a bunch of role players, and all of them do their role very well. But like, Chris Middleton as the number 2 on most teams is not winning a championship. Kevin Durant, I don't think they're winning a championship. LeBron James, maybe they're winning a championship. Like, there are very, very few guys in this league where he could be the number 2 option and have them be a championship caliber team.
And
very few.
The way I can compare this is like if you talk about Dallas and Luka, right? Like, Giannis has been that guy and has players that are built to be around him, and he's taken his team up the standings. Luka has been that guy, and he has not had exactly the right players around him, and they have not been able to go up the standings in the same way. That's the comparison that I kind of see similarly.
But like, the thing is like, it's funny because they add Kyrie Irving, and they've just been worse.
Yeah, I know. The struggles, man.
It is what it is.
It's a wild time right now, but everyone gets to take a little break, you know, All-Star weekend coming up, so nobody has to stress about losing games unless you're LeBron or Kevin Durant. But hey, Kevin Durant's not playing, so he doesn't have to worry about losing the game, I guess.
He doesn't have to worry. Yeah, he's just gonna sit on the bench and coach, right? That'd be sweet.
That would be funny. All right. Anything else, my friend, or shall we move into takes?
No, man, you're good. You start us off with a hot take?
Look, mine's super easy, and it's gonna be hilarious if the curse makes it how this is how it ends. But LeBron's winning another All-Star game. Like, it's been like 4, 5, maybe 6 years straight. I don't think he's lost. So on the one hand, I'm like, this is a surefire bet. On the other hand, it is hilarious how this is like confirmation that the curse is real, basically, if he loses.
Yeah,
here we
definitely, man. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can pull off another one. I'm going to go with the 3 games tonight. I'm going to pick, Milwaukee over Chicago. I'm going to pick Minnesota over Washington, and I'm going to pick the Clippers over Phoenix. And those are the 3 bets for tonight. I'm riding a hot streak with my takes, and I'm just going to keep them going.
We'll see if Matt can be 15-1. That's the joke. No, but I'm excited to see if you can keep that magic running, man.
Let's go, baby.
You had a lot going on during those football playoffs, so we'll see if we can transition it back to basketball now.
It's easy when you have the script, man. It's easy.
Yeah, just printing it right out of the printer. But I think that's it. So thanks everybody for being here. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Board Sports. Like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up, and check out theboardsports.net for new episodes and blog posts.
And we'll talk to you next time.